welcome to our 8 o'clock briefing. Invocation will be Vice Chairman William Pate, Pledge of Allegiance Commissioner John Bell. Have approval amendments. Mr. Honeycutt, any discussion, adjustment of the agenda?
Not at this time.
Okay. Then we have a special presentation to Mike Myers' retirement,
Yes, sir.
public comments, appointment committee.
Yes, sir, we have some reappointments, some appointments this morning, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Honeycutt, I'll turn the consent agenda to you.
First, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. And first, I'd like to go over the budget amendments, and I'll turn that over to our Finance Director, Allison Spade.
First one is for the Maxwell Center, requesting to anticipate and appropriate $24,000. This is for additional collections above budget on the rental of facilities and to appropriate that to the associated expenditures as a result of the increased activity. For the Health Department, we're anticipating, we are decreasing the family planning budget by $817. This is a decrease in the grant amount, and they are also decreasing the medical supplies line item to offset that. For Board of Elections, we're requesting to reallocate salaries for a position that was held for a few months in the Board of Elections department, and this was for a state mandated function that was required, I think, back in the fall.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? Who authorized this hire?
Well, the PAF would have been signed by
Right.
department head, a HR director, and a county manager assistant.
And the reason why it was a mandated position during the election time, it was one of those positions we did not have a choice on at the time, so.
Well, would I follow up on that question? I understand maybe at the time of the election, but why now is it turning into a full-time position?
It was, what happened was it is a full-time position, but it was not budgeted at all during the original budget, and the position was filled, and when we ran lap salaries, we saw that there was a deficit in that line item because it was not budgeted. So now we're doing the budget amendment to correct that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I might ask that this budget amendment be pulled and we get more information in regards to the mandate and why this position is now required.
Okay.
This is a good example of how government grows. So I'd like a little bit more information on that.
Okay.
This is kind of like a change order on a building. Okay.
We'll get you some more information. For the Maxwell Center, we are requesting to reallocate a total of $16,994 for Benchmark Network Solutions for web security. This was a cost that was not anticipated during the original budget preparation, but it is required to support the servers that are out in the Maxwell Center. And if you have questions, which I see on your face, Mr. Preppel is here to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Chairman, I definitely have got some questions on $17,000 worth of whatever. Can we get some explanation on that?
You thought you were going to have a good day today.
What questions?
Well,
Would you like an overall synopsis of?
Well, $17,000 for what?
It is a pair of web filters for the Maxwell Center that we had to purchase when we put the project together. That was a part of that, the equipment we bought for it. They're web filters for everything over there.
And what does that do?
Prevents you going to sites you should not be, whether you're on county or public network.
That's a security thing.
Right. Keeps viruses, malware, anything down, and obviously, we don't want you going to anything at work.
And a lot of that is for the Wi-Fi as well.
Well, right, it does work. It's basically all of your county network, all of your county, people who are on the county network.
Is it follow up on, is this, you say, to keep folk from going into areas that they shouldn't go into? You
Essentially,
mean our employees out there?
websites, all websites, right? Now, this is strictly
No.
just for the Maxwell Center.
All for the Maxwell Center.
Right.
So there's a certain few number of people out there, and we're putting in $17,000 to keep them from going on the site they shouldn't go?
Right, that's hardware and licensing. That's not just you're buying the piece of equipment. It's licensing, maintenance, and support.
I don't know I don't know what their thoughts were, but I'm just trying to figure, are we spending $17,000 to prevent some of our employees from going on to a site they shouldn't go on,
Right.
like their school children or something?
Right, that is correct.
Mr. Chairman,
And telling them not to go on and
Well,
work?
let me be clear. It's not just the sites that first come to mind, pornography, things like that. There's other sites that they're not aware of. In other words, they follow links that lead to malware that have embedded links that.
Okay, you mean
So-
suck it into going?
Right, there are other pieces of that. It's not just pornography
All right.
and guns and things, whatever.
Then that's, overall, then you're talking about securing our site from potentially some kind of a scam. Because they can suck you into going
To a
there.
degree.
You answer something and say,
To a degree.
is this so-and-so? You say yes, and they use yes to mean everything.
Exactly. That's part of it, right.
Mr. Aycock.
and correct me if I'm wrong, this is not just for employees. That building is used by a lot of different groups and organizations and all. They have to, they're kind of working off of our network, and it's not necessarily our employee we're worried about, but we're more concerned about everybody else that's out there.
Well, right. there are-
Both, I mean, both.
We have the public Wi-Fi out there.
Yeah.
I'm saying
And this is, because you can have, I think, what was the total number of people we could have on that public Wi-Fi at one time?
Well, that number's fluctuating because we've
Yeah.
gotten better and better with it.
Right.
I mean, it's upwards of 5,000 people, really, to be
Yeah.
quite honest.
And I don't want the people
Right.
that's listening to think that we don't trust our employees out there. This is for the whole system, for anybody that's there that's using it, the way I
Well,
understand
to be
it.
clear, as I was, Mr. Carmine, it's not a case of just, we're blocking this because we don't trust you. It's, you may not know where you're going.
Right.
Following an email, maybe you were on a sports page and you're following a link, we're just preventing that.
You're
That's
ta-
a
you're-
lot of it. That's more than half of it.
You're
is
talking
just-
about me now, because
Could be, could be.
I'm computer illiterate, so I mean, you accidentally can go anywhere.
Sure, and that's what we're trying to prevent.
Okay, all right.
It's not just the malicious.
Right, but the big issue is that public Wi-Fi out there, and that's the service we do provide.
Is this the only software that was available?
Well, when we went out for bid with Benchmark and ended up providing equipment, right, we ended up going with them.
Mr. Chairman.
That's legit.
Yes, Ms. Mayor.
That was,
Does this also protect hackers?
well, to a degree, it's obviously not foolproof. There's no way to be foolproof, but again, it prevents you from going to websites, following links, among other things, following links, and
Yeah.
so nothing's 100%.
This is no different than any other private business in Wayne County. We got the same thing, even a small business. Unfortunately, that's the way it is if you're on the web.
It is.
And the expenses we're talking about here, this is gonna be an ongoing thing, because as you know, spyware and all these things advance, and they have to upgrade.
It's not getting easier.
Upgrade, you know, so.
One last thing, have you reached out to all the departments in the county to make sure that if they need some software to block intrusion, that they have gotten?
But that's on all of our, anybody who's not on a thin client, has a PC, a traditional PC or laptop, has software installed, so to prevent most of that. Again, it's not 100%, but we do what we can as far from a client side. For thin client, we control that.
Well, I will just ask you to, as part of your overall responsibility, don't leave it to one of the department heads to sit and wonder over whether or not they should contact you or not. Please reach out to them in a proactive way to make sure that if they need something for their department, or they think they do, either relieve their minds that they don't need it,
Sure.
or please make sure that they have it.
Okay,
Because,
definitely.
thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Mr. Honeycutt, it's great to be able to take the shortfalls from existing budget, so I guess we see some cuts there in that budget for next year.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Pate?
Okay. The next one is for Wayne Nett, and I do want to take a minute to explain this one. You are seeing an increase in the salaries line item, a total of $225,100. However, the bulk of this increase you are seeing is a reallocation from other salary line items, like fringes, retirement, and things like that. If you will recall, we had some significant budget changes and reductions in the original budget last year during the budget process. Some of those were not correct. They were not accurate. So we are having to reallocate amongst the salary line items to straighten those out. They did require some additional salaries line items, and that is a total of $68,415. The way I'm arriving at that figure is if you go all the way down to the last two line items, you will see that we are taking $20,000 from account 510, which is capital outlay, and $48,415 from capital outlay. And we are reallocating that to salaries. Everything else is coming from an existing salaries line item. It's really just straightening out a budget that was not accurate to begin with.
And if the board remember, we had some issues with the Wayne Net and trying to get a handle on scheduling and salaries. And I appreciate the work that Allison has done and Chip as well to try to get a better handle on that.
So what was 510, 540 originally budgeted for?
I'm not sure, but I will get you that information before the 9 o'clock. I can look that up easily.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
with this much changing to have to be done, did this problem start when the budget was done last year and was not done correct?
Yes,
Okay, well, we're fixing to come up on budget time again. If our department heads needs help with their budget, somebody needs to reach out and,
And we
we don't,
do.
this is embarrassing to see this many changes. I mean, and I know you always got things that pop up that's out of anyone's control, but, if they're having a problem with their budgets, somebody help them.
Well, and I mean, we do offer that assistance. We provide an orientation to all of our departments at the beginning of the budget process. We provide them with training manuals. But ultimately, to a degree, we have to rely on their calculations because they know how much they anticipate each of their employees to work. So we do try to look at some of that, and we do make ourselves available if anyone has any questions, and we'll continue to do that.
I know it says Wayne Net, but at the time that it was done, was it part of OES?
No, we was separate.
Okay.
We're still keeping it, the accounting separate, but again, putting Wayne Net and EMS under
Okay.
that one.
But at the
All right.
time, but I do need to clarify, at the time it was being done, no, it was not a part of
Right.
OES, but it was being prepared by
Right.
OES.
You answered my question.
Okay. I wanted to make that clear. Any other questions on that one? The next budget amendment is for social services. We're requesting to reallocate $9,000 to professional services. This was for unanticipated expenditure at that line item for a claim, insurance claim. For the DWI task force, we are requesting to reallocate $8,079 out of salaries to overtime. They did have an higher than anticipated expenditure during the month of December, the holidays of this program, and so they need to reallocate those salaries to the overtime that was incurred.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
am I understanding that the overtime during the holiday was authorized?
Yes, sir,
Why
it
was there
was.
that much overtime? I mean, that's a lot of overtime.
Well, my understanding is, the explanation I received was, sometimes during the holidays, you do have more DWI-related traffic stops, and they had more than was anticipated, and I guess had to run those forces a little more than they thought.
This was probably criminal driven. More active.
I understand, however, this lowly little fella here If in fact this was a program that we've authorized to expand our DUI monitoring, I just have a little bit of a hard time there of justifying, well, we authorized it, and then they go beyond it in regards to additional road stops that were not originally budgeted. So I have a little bit of a problem with that. Was it needed? Maybe so, but that's the reason we have budgets. Okay, I'll hush.
I have a question. The money that gets collected from DWIs never comes back to the sheriff's department, does it?
From the fines or?
Yeah, it all goes to the administrative office of court.
I really think there's a little money that would be a court cost that would come back to the county.
Okay, I was just trying to find a way to take care of their overtime costs. Okay, thank you.
Your next budget amendment is also for the sheriff's office, requesting to reallocate some salaries line items for 401K. This is a difficult line item to project because this is driven by how much an employee chooses to contribute. They may contribute 1 or 2% to the regular 401K, and then we provide, our policy allows us to provide a match to that. So this is one of those things that can have some adjustments through the year based on employee participation.
So is the 401K, do they make that choice in open enrollment, or is it?
It's actually, they can change it anytime. They actually can log on and change that online anytime.
So they can change it without getting authorization from the county budget?
Essentially, that's correct, because as long as now, if they go like in between 1% and 2%, we're only going to pay 1%. But if they change it to 2%, then our policy states that we will pay 2%, match 2%.
So is that something we need to look at?
We can. And what we have tried to do is kind of average it out. So we did not, it's one of those moving targets. Sometimes if you budget the max, you'll have the surplus there, and if you budget what you think it is, you may have the deficit. So it's one of those things, they have that right to go through orbit and make that change. So it is a moving target.
But the county has the right to adopt a policy that they'll only honor it at certain parts or time of the year.
Yes.
Yes.
When that change is made, do you guys know it immediately?
We do
When
an
somebody
audit. Yes,
does
sir,
that
we
change
do an
online?
audit of our 401K changes to make sure that we're complying with our policy on that.
Is there a larger number of changes that you see on average?
I'm not really sure, but I could find out for you. I don't know that it's a large amount every month. I'm not sure over the course of a year how many that would be.
Does they put extra work on finance to keep up with this? In other words, is it that massive?
Well, it's another monthly audit we have to do because we don't have our system will not link up to provide that notification if somebody changes it. So we have to keep an eye on that, and we have to monitor that.
I think we need to look at it, Mr. Jones.
And this is global too, it's just not the sheriff's department, this is countywide.
Yeah. The other thing, she just reminded me of something else. When we have merits or increases, any type of promotion, that could also bump up your salary to where it requires an adjustment as well. Now, we try to anticipate that whenever we budget for merits, but sometimes it might push somebody above that range that you hadn't
Well, I think in the
anticipated.
sheriff's department, they've had all those people retire and they've been bumping people up.
Backfill.
Sergeants and corporal, all that stuff I don't know about, but that would increase, that increases their pay, so that's going to increase our contribution, or our contribution to them, because it's based on their pay.
But the people retiring should be a washout.
Well, it depends on if they're contributing and the others aren't.
We can get you some more information on it, though.
Correct.
Are we okay to move on? Okay.
I'm good with it.
For the Jetport, we're requesting to reallocate $22,500 from salaries to professional services. This is to reappropriate funds for the airport consultant. For Wayne County EMS, we are asking to reallocate $9,650 from overtime to salaries. The overtime has been limited in this department, as you know, so we do have some lapsed salaries from what was originally budgeted, but there was some additional salaries line items needed when we ran the lapsed salaries report, so we're moving it to that line item. For WCDA, we are requesting to to move the Stormberg Foods grant. We're just moving it from one line item to another. It was incorrectly identified in the GL, so we're correcting this. For EMS, requesting to anticipate and appropriate $810.75. This is due to an insurance refund. For Human Resources, we are requesting to reallocate $7,941 to salaries and related fringes. When the original budget was prepared, we were anticipating the retirement of our department head a little sooner than what she's actually going to be able to retire, so we've had to adjust our salaries accordingly. For the detention center, they are asking to reallocate out of salaries and wages and holiday pay, $57,933 and $40,000. I have asked him about this, and they basically have the opposite problem they had last year. Last year, were not able to get a lot of part-time help, so they were having to use a lot of full-time salaries and overtime. This year, it is the opposite problem. They're having vacancies in their full-time positions, so they're having to use extra help. So that's why you're seeing this shifting around between the line items.
Can I go back to 299?
Sure.
I know we put you on the spot, Allison, and I don't mean to here, but for the line item 183 hospitalization decreasing by 7941.
I looked into that. That is, as you recall, the finance office requested for a full-time position during the budget time. We were allocated a part-time position, and I think we just forgot to take out the hospitalization associated with that full-time, so there was extra money in that line item. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody good with the detention center budget amendment that I went over?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. For the Jetport, we are requesting to reallocate Eastern Region monies for the painting of a hangar. This should finish out, no, I'm sorry, we've got one more left, but this will help to finish out Eastern Region monies. The storage facility that you see is being reallocated. They've been able to utilize storage in additional buildings, so they are not going to require that building. Does that make sense?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I could
Yes.
inquire. These funds were actually already allocated to the airport, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's right.
Okay, so
That's right.
they were actually there for
Use.
their improvements, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, the good news is they're finally getting that T-hanger upgraded.
And actually, your next budget amendment is also for the Jetport. Again, these were Eastern Region funds that were set aside for Jetport projects. It is being appropriated for the T-hanger taxi lane, and I believe this uses up the rest of those funds.
Madam Budget Director, and this is not a question, this is a question to our manager. And it's just a general question. Can we assume that the Jetport is in the black and not the red? Can we assume that it's not presenting a drain on the Wayne County's?
Not at this time because of all the capital projects that we're doing.
So it's not carrying its own weight right now.
We're if you look at the management out there, and I think we've done some really good things as far as hiring the consultant to come out and basically run the airport during this interim period. We're still, we're close to break even, but I don't think we're at break even yet. But we have had if you look at the activity between the corporate area expansion, the T-hangers, the maintenance and upkeep that we have done at the airport, we are really moving that jetport where it needs to be. So you should be very proud of the work that's being done out at the jetport.
I would not want our general public to get the impression that maybe because of the select clientele that's using the jetport, that we would be not as cognizant of the use of taxpayers' funds. And just listening, I've heard less questions about the jetport this morning, budget changes and so forth, and I have other departments, and it just drew my attention that anything can raise a flag, but I just want to make sure that it is trending towards self-sufficiency.
It is, and one of the things I think you should be proud about where we're going at the jetport, we're really starting to use that as an economic development tool and trying to lure those corporate hangars and trying to get those corporate aircraft to come to Wayne County and try to provide space for them. Again, that's an incredible tool because not a lot of local airports have that capability and have that hangar space. So we're definitely working on that as an economic development tool.
Do you get the same analysis from evidently the state commerce or someone that Mount Olive is getting to claim that it produces a certain amount of worth for us? You know, I think they're up about $22 million or something like that.
I believe our jetport was 72 million?
No idea how they come up with that.
I don't know how they came up with that figure. However, the state of North Carolina has stated that our, and I think Steve actually did an article about our jetport as well, but it is approximately $70 to $72 million economic impact for Wayne County.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that the newspaper has taken a look at it, because I think we do need, I'd love to hear an independent voice about what generates what, because like my colleague here on my right said, and I know how he sometimes read into things. I wonder, you know, how do they get these figures in? And then, of course, when they say they come from Raleigh, all of my words were alleviated then, because things that come out of Raleigh, I'm sure they're always correct, so we'll move on.
Oh, I'm sure they're correct. I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think one thing that we've got to remember is, excuse me, the jetport is generating revenues that's really not tied to the jetport. I mean, it's this, I wouldn't say it's complicated, but it's generating revenue that's really, the figures doesn't flow through the jetport.
Right.
And it boils down to the economic development and expansion then, but until I got on this board, I questioned why did we even need a jetport. But now that, you know, you sit up here and think sometimes that you've got the answers, but you find out that you don't have the answers. And our jetport is probably one of the best kept secrets in Wayne County. It's generating a lot of both of the airports in Wayne County as far as that goes. But it's I'm not questioning the figures at the airport.
Well, one of the things I would also mention that I with respect to our relationship with UNC Air and having, you know, we're hoping to have 2 helicopters for UNC Air stationed out there and a fixed-winged airplane stationed out at our jetport. That really is a public safety issue for our citizens and a public health issue. So, you know, and Vidant is down at Mount Olive. So we're very lucky and fortunate that we have 2 airports and 2 hospital-based helicopters, you know, for different hospitals based within Wayne County. So we're very lucky and blessed for that.
And looking at, excuse me, and looking at the figures sometimes, you know, this board's got to take part of the responsibility. When you don't have hangars that's available for rental, that's not the airport's fault.
Mr. Mayor.
I have a question on the grants that
we get for hangers and so forth, that's a 10% match, right?
Some of them are, some of them aren't. We do have some Golden Leaf funds that we're working on as well to help supplement the corporate area expansion. So, but the grants from the state are a 10% match.
So somewhere down the road, we will have to match.
Well, we've already done budget amendments and matched for the corporate area expansion that we have now.
Okay, and where does that money come from?
I think it came just from general fund.
General fund?
Yes, sir.
Some of it's come from Eastern Region.
Yeah, some from Eastern Regional and some from general
As much
fund.
as we could use.
And that's the reason why we're running out of Eastern Regional funds. I will say, and we have spent that money well. That has been a great source of revenue for the Jetport.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. For the Maxwell Center, we are anticipating an additional $15,000 in user fees related to sale of alcohol. This has also exceeded our original budget, and so we need to appropriate the revenue and expenditure for that. Our last budget amendment is for Literacy Connections. This is basically a pass-through. They are on our salaries, but they reimburse us for that. And they had an increase in their salaries line item, so we are anticipating that increase, but also the reimbursement from that.
Then, any other questions on the budget amendments? We'll go to number 2, under consent agenda. Motion to approve Wayne County Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee bylaws. That's on page 3032. Not sure what the changes are, but the bylaws are listed within your agenda packet. And then again, number 3, motion to approve application for state acquisition relocation funds, the SARF, from the North Carolina Emergency Management. And Dave Harris is here if you do have any questions.
He's got a little.
Yeah, so if we could introduce Dave.
When we first started with the HMGP program, and also when the grant was approved last summer, we had been requesting from the state to also provide supplemental or gap or relocation assistance for those entering the buyout. When we're purchasing flood-damaged properties in a floodplain, a lot of them are older and lower valued, it is tough for a homeowner to find a house comparable or similar to that outside the 100-year floodplain for the same price. I mean, just not going to happen. It's just a market reality. And having gap funding in order to help the person purchase the replacement home is essential for a buyout program. And I know I've talked to the board before with, if you got 100 houses in a buyout program and you have gap or relocation assistance, in most cases, you're able to get close to 80% participation. Now, the ones that can't participate are legitimate reasons. They may not be able to provide a county clear title. They may have financial issues upside down in their mortgage. They may have all of a sudden family and personal issues that come up during the period, and so not all are able to take advantage. Without that gap funding in programs we've managed in the past, participation drops below 50%, just automatically. And there are a lot of reasons for that without getting into particulars, because they involve different characteristics of where families are within their own financial and personal situation when it comes to making that transition. But it just seems to be that rule of thumb just has held through since Floyd in programs that we've managed. The state has looked at having either using the HUD money, the CDBG-DR funding for assistance, and also looked at state funding. And I congratulate the state on using the state funding. It is much easier, much quicker. You can make changes with it, and the ones that make the decision are in Raleigh. doesn't have to go through 3 different levels of federal review. And so we're hoping with the county submitting the application, fairly quick turnaround with the state on grant agreements, so that we can reach a point that we can actually provide that information to the homeowners when we provide the offers to purchase. So here's the amount your property is appraised for, and whatever reductions you may have at closing, but here's the additional money, it's grant funding, it's no loan, that you would be able to get when you purchase your replacement home. They put those two together, and they can look at buying a replacement home and getting out of that, the floodplain situation like that. And the program is, the setup's kind of like it's been before, up to a maximum of $50,000 in gap assistance. And that may seem like a lot, but when you think about it, a lot of these properties are valued at 50, 60, 70,000. 50,000 only takes them to 110 and 120. And even at that level, it's not like there's thousands of houses available for them to choose from. And it will be based on characteristics of each household. There's not where we just divvy out 25,000, 50,000, without actually managing and controlling exactly what that is. But there will be a number of families that are in that lower valued situation that this will benefit the most. If somebody's got a $250,000 house, we could probably find comparable $250,000 houses without a lot of assistance. It's the ones that are in that $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 range, and quite frankly, a number even less than that, where this will actually come into play and make it, put them in a position where they can, purchase a replacement home and take advantage of basically the buyout program.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I had a question. I know I've heard that a property may be, under the assessment process, may be environmental concerns, in other words, an environmental study of a particular home. Does that just, I'm assuming that if they do an environmental study, that's for that whole area, not just for that home. Is that right?
In the case of the properties within the HMGP program,
Yeah.
the environmental review has already been done of each individual house at both the state and the federal level. So when we received the grant agreement, that process had been completed. The one step that we have during the buyout is the families complete a hazardous materials survey where they're simply checking off. And in real estate, you'll have a property disclosure statement.
Yeah.
Where people will sign and indicate if there's any problems or, deficiencies or something. This particular form is simply designed not as that broad property disclosure statement. It is because the county's going to buy it. It doesn't matter what condition the house is. It doesn't matter if there's deficiencies. It's not like a regular buyer who's planning on moving into the house. It's going to be torn down. This one is designed to address, has this property ever been used as a gas station? Has this property ever been used for farm pesticides? Has this property been used as a area where trucks were parked and there was a lot of maintenance and stuff going on that would have some remnants within the soil? And I'll be honest with you, every single one that has come back has been checked. No, 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 no. These are strictly residential properties. It hadn't been an issue. That's the only environmentally related factor that really comes up after the grant's been approved.
Okay.
And it's a simple one page, probably 6 questions. And these are just traditional residential subdivided lots in this case.
Thank you.
I want, Mr. Chairman, I want to go back a minute or two. In your conversation a few minutes ago, I understand that you're saying someone who has a home valued at, say, $50,000 to $75,000, it's going to be harder for that person to get relocated because of when he's allocated that amount of money. It's going to be hard to find a suitable house in that $50,000 to $75,000, but it would be because of the building and everything. It's easy to find one for $200,000 than it is for 50 to 75. So that person in that 50 to 75,000, he's at a disadvantage. Did I interpret that right? He's at a disadvantage because what he's gonna get out of his home that's unsuitable is not enough money to put him into another one that's comparable. I'll use that word rather than any other word.
That's right. They are at a much more of a disadvantage than those whose property values are higher. And normally that higher property value is an indication the house is standard, the house has been maintained, they probably had used insurance funds and so forth. For the ones that are in the floodplain where the property values are lower, the houses are built, they are older, they're lower valued, they are in a lot of cases substandard. Well, in this program, there is not an incentive to move from a substandard house to another substandard house. There is an effort to move to, and this is to coin the HUD phrase, decent, safe, and sanitary property, not a fixer-upper, not with roof leaks, not with floors falling in, not going back into that severely deteriorated condition. The GAP money helps make the transition. When we're saying comparable, we're also saying standard, a decent place to stay. Now, the program is not going to make people completely whole, where every single thing they had at their property all of a sudden gets duplicated somewhere else, and they move in, and it's just like it used to be. It is specifically to get a house, a structure. All these other peripherals are not part of what we're looking at for comparable housing. We're looking at the structured living, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,800 square feet. Brick Ranch may have a carport or something. We're going to find comparable houses outside a 100-year floodplain that are not fixer-uppers, and there's going to be a difference in price. Those houses are going to cost more to purchase, and the program fills that gap.
Mr. Chairman, one quick question in regards to the 9 parcels delayed for historic review in Seven Springs. How long are we anticipating the delay? Now that we're getting all of the title work, survey work, and appraisal work in and have made an offer, probably not much longer.
Okay.
I mean,
We have been working with, and I know Chip's been working with folks in Raleigh to try to come to a conclusion about when those properties are acquired, what can you do with some of the materials that are there, those houses that you can use at other facility or can be used by other historical preservation groups, and that's what that is actually all about.
Okay.
Is the house is still going to be acquired and torn down. That's
Just a
going
little
to happen.
delay.
It's just that when the county acquires it, how can some of those materials and that become available to some historical commissions, agencies with historical interest that may want to come and get it. And of course, it's public property. It's not going to be a problem because it's just one public agency utilizing it for, display of some of the materials in those houses and just trying to work out those details.
Thank you.
But now that the program is actually rolling, we can just tell the state, hey, you better hurry up because we're going to roll right past you if you don't. Go ahead and approve these in Seven Springs.
Down where it says eight owners withdrew. Would that be a situation where someone decided that what they're getting for the house and then what it would cost them to find another house is too great and they figured it'd better just stay where they're at? Is that a scenario?
Actually, the majority of those, they simply sold their property before anything actually started.
Oh.
They were in a situation where they needed to do something. If the program had been available 30 days after the disaster, they would probably be taking advantage of it. But the time in between, people do what people have to do, and some of them, it's just a matter of they needed to sell their property, they did, and that takes them out. I mean, that's, their particular housing need has been met on their own prior to the program coming in to help.
Mr. Chairman, you need a motion? I know it's under consent, but.
We'll leave it under consent if you're okay. If there's, then we'll make the motion.
All right.
And there's a handout there as to the numerical statuses where we are on the DR program and the HMGP program. That, I think Carol, did you give those to them? Okay. If you got any questions on that, I'd be glad to answer those too.
Thank you, Dave.
And now, new business, Allison, number one, will do the quarterly financial statement for the county through December 31st, 2018. And then she will do the quarterly presentation for the TDA for the same period, which is number two. And number three, Paula Edwards will be here to discuss changing the senior center hours. And then we will have county manager's comments, board commissioners' comments, and if the board is agreeable, we do have a work session scheduled with Skinner, Farlow, Kerwin to discuss the adapted reuse of the Busman Building on Dixie Trail. If we are okay with that, we would do that before a closed session, before the last closed session. And then have a closed session, and then we'll adjourn.
Any other things? All right.
We're good.
Take a break and be back at 9 o'clock.
All right.